Alright, so today I want to talk about the difference between a Dana 44 and the 8.8. Now these are both very common swaps that people like to put in their Jeeps. And there's kind of the pros and cons of both of them. But for most of your weekend guys that go out, want to take their Jeep on the trail, go hit some rocks, play some mud, the 8.8 in my opinion is a better buy over the Dana 44. There's a couple reasons. First, the general cost. To do an 8.8 swap, I did mine in an entire weekend, and I did not even spend $300 total. That is everything I did, new brakes, axle, and everything. I got my axle from a pick-a-pull. I went out, I found it. It had a limited slip differential. It was in excellent shape, had basically no rust because it was West Texas. Had disc brakes already on it, and it was in just outstanding shape. So that was about, I think I paid like $120 or something for that. And then my adapter plate, all the stuff that I put on it, and to actually install it with a new set of gears to match what I want. Now the reason why I say that over the Dana 44 was, at the time, the only Dana 44 I could find was $600. For $600, it had drum brakes and no gears at all and no carrier at all. So that was the only option at the time I could find that was even reasonably priced. Most of them are actually $1,000, and they were still open differential. So I'm looking at lockers here, and a Spartan locker is $255. It's about the best price I could find at the time. And depending on what kind of performance you're looking at, most people aren't going to spend $500 on a Spartan locker, $500 basically for the axle, then have to pay for the brackets, then convert it over to disc brakes. The price just isn't there. So when we start looking at all of the other things that are happening, it's just not worth it. The Dana 44 is just not as strong as an 8.8. Now, we all have this thing in our head where we've been told, put a Dana 44 underneath your vehicle, put a Dana 44 underneath your vehicle. But there's better choices out there. And in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's not by everybody, for the price to build an 8.8 to make it as strong as what I'm running right now, it's just not the same. It's not even the same ballpark. I literally re-geared it, put it in, limited slip, welded all my brackets on, and was done in a weekend. And I had an axle that was basically right up there with about a Dana 60 in strength, because it's been axle trussed and whatnot. So not only did I get a better axle, but it comes with more gearing options. So if you don't run 456 gears like I do, which most people don't run 456 gears unless they're running like 35-inch tires. I have a 4-cylinder, so I'm running 456s with 31s until these wear down, and then I'm going to go to 33s. That's why I have 456 gears. Most people, if they're running 31s and they want to be able to go out and they're worried about their Dana 35 just snapping on them, because I broke mine a bunch of times before I finally said, good riddance. Sorry, the dog is really insistent that I pet her. And you're running 31-inch tires, or say a 2-inch lift, but you don't want to worry about that axle breaking underneath your vehicle and leaving you stranded on the trail. An 8.8 is a great upgrade. The limited slip in the rear, out in the sandy conditions and in most mud conditions, I literally just rolled right through or right over everything I needed to. Because as soon as it started slipping, it just transferred power, and I just gained more traction. May, leave me be. Sorry. So that was a very good plus in my opinion. Not only did I get an axle that was 1,600 pounds stronger than the Dana 44, they were so plentiful that I could have got it in 410 gears. I could have got it in 373 gears, like 30. I think it was like 307, 305. So depending on what Jeep you have, you can actually get the gearing to match it. Or say you were going to upgrade your tires to say 33s, but you had a 6-cylinder. Instead of running 373s, you could run 410s, and you could have got that literally right out from underneath a Mercury Mountaineer, or certain Mustangs, or Explorers, and you can just get factory 410s with a limited slip and be perfectly fine, and only have to re-gear the front axle. So that does two things. You got factory gearing, so you don't have to worry about doing all that, and you got a limited slip with an upgrade in the gearing. And I wasn't getting that with the 44. They're just almost non-existent in the junkyards anymore. And when you do, they're not typically in the greatest shape. You're going to end up having to redo all the seals on them. You're going to have to do all the conversions on them as far as the brakes, because who's going to spend almost $1,000 into the rear axle to have a weaker axle than an 8.8, and on top of that having to do all your seals and your gearing, your locker, and turn around and do the brakes. So for those of you who have an XJ, a WJ, a Cherokee, you just, whether it's a TJ or YJ, in my opinion, the 8.8 is the way to go. And for the brackets, if you don't want to pay the price for 8.8 brackets, you can use Dana 44 brackets, and they'll have little tabs on the ends. You just grind them off and they'll sit flush right over an 8.8 axle, because that's what we did on the LT's Cherokee. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the cost, the benefit, the fact that I'm getting disc brakes, better gearing, and even if you don't want the limited slip and you do want to put a locker in there, there's plenty of aftermarket support for the 8.8. You're never really going to run out. I'm not running chromoly shafts in either one of my axles. I run 31-inch tires with 456 gears, and no issues as far as, really, May? She's a big baby like this. Huh, May? You see yourself? Yeah. Sorry. You're just not going to have a good time trying to find and pay for an axle that in the end is going to be weaker. For the money it would take me just to install a regular 8.8 versus a Dana 44, I could get chromoly shafts, I could axle truss it, I could get a locker, I could do all these things that I just wasn't getting with the 44 swap. Not only were they harder to find, but everything cost more, and I would have ended up with a weaker axle in the long run. And if you don't like the C-clip design and the 8.8 by far, go out and buy the C-clip eliminator and throw that in it. As it stands right now, I have broke a couple axles. I have never broke my Dana 30, and I have never broke my 8.8. I have blown out a couple shocks once I put the 8.8 in there, hop in the rear end. I have blown out my upper control arm bushings, but I have never broke my 8.8. It doesn't matter in the sand, it doesn't matter. I have not broken, I've not damaged it in any way. I've literally blown out the bushings holding it on and some of my suspension beating the crap out of it, but I have never broke an axle shaft in that 8.8. Now again, I have a 4-cylinder, not a 6-cylinder. But considering the amount of force it takes to break most of that stuff that I've already broke, it's not likely that I'm going to end up breaking that axle shaft without running chromoly shafts. And when the day comes that I actually do break it, spin it, or damage it, I will buy the chromoly shafts, and then I'll buy the clip eliminator, and I'll put it in. But as it stands right now, in my opinion, the 8.8 is just a better buy. You're going to have a better chance with, availability, gearing options, the fact that if it's a weekend trail rig, the limited slip, and then throw a G80 in the front, and that'll take you 90% of where most people are going to go anyway. If you're a hardcore rock crawler, you're not going to go with a Dana 44 anyway. You're probably going to run up to a Dana 60, or like a 10.5. You're going to run something a lot larger than a 44. But your average Jeep on the road today, all right, 35-inch tires and under, does not need a 44. A 44 was like a couple years ago. Yeah, I would have believed the hype on the 44. Not now. I won't. I don't want a weaker axle that I have to spend more money for. In my opinion, it just doesn't make sense. Especially how easy they are to pull, put on your brackets and put it back up underneath there, and then upgrade to 4-disc brakes, which I love. That 4-disc brakes, it's an amazing how much better that is for your stopping distance, and especially if you're towing, or you do what I do, which is do a lot of almost, it's not really overland, but you're going hunting or going camping, and the areas you got to get to are a little rougher, softer, or the roads are just kind of crap. It's not trail riding, but it's not really driving down a dirt road. And that's what my Jeep was built for, was so I didn't get stuck out in the middle of a swamp somewhere. But that's my opinion. If you don't like it, by all means, put it down below. Tell me exactly what you think I'm doing wrong. Exactly how it is. Because I'm telling you, as it stands now, I have an 8.8 underneath my Jeep, and I have no regrets at all. And I have a Cherokee out there. I plan on calling it the Cheap Jeep Project. I paid $1,000 for the Cherokee. I've done some work through just to get it through the winter. So I spent about another $800 on it over the last 6-7 months. So I'm only into that Jeep a total of $1,800 right now, and I might do the 8.8 swap up on it just because I love that limited slip. And last winter I would drive my TJ out with that limited slip rear end and the 8.8, and I was driving, and roads were a little slippery, a little icy, snow, and it slipped a little bit, off I went. I took the Cherokee out the same, like 10 minutes later I took it out because it was the way it was parked. And when I went to the store, which is just a mile and a half up the road, I literally was sliding all over the road because of that one wheel pulling to one side, because only one wheel was spin. So I was sliding all over the place, compared to what that limited slip was doing, which basically slip a little bit, off I went. I stayed straight. As long as I didn't stomp on the gas, I was perfectly fine. That open diff was completely different. I started going down the road, and it just, I was going one way or the other as I went. So literally 1 year of abuse. I have yet to break it. I broke some other things, but I haven't broke that 8.8. And I'm just putting it out there. Dana 44 ain't that great. Especially you start looking at the numbers and actually believe the facts, not the hype. So if you're interested in an upgrade, 8.8 in my opinion is the way to go.